Hello everyone and welcome to this video about Photographer 5, the add-on for Blender that expands your camera and lighting workflows with physically based units as well as many little tools to help you make your renders more photorealistic. It's been a very long time since I made a video, so there have been a lot of new features added since the last one. But instead of focusing on all the new options, I think it's more interesting to make a tutorial to show you how to use Photographer as an artist. We'll start simple with this car render using an HDRI, and then in a later video I will get more into the details of physically based lighting. Today we'll be running Photographer 5.5.3 with Blender 4.4.1. I have downloaded this amazing Porsche model from Lion Sharp Studios on Sketchfab. It is available for free and can even be used for commercial projects, so I really have to thank them for sharing it. Let's say you have already installed the add-on. You can search for it in the preferences, add-on panel, photographer. And what I want to talk about are the different settings that are available in the preferences, because there are many options available here for you to match your workflow. So I invite you to have a look at all the different preferences. And if you don't know what something is doing, you can always leave your mouse over the property and it will give you a bit more information about what they do. But first, it's always good to check for updates. As I don't want to spam you with emails, I usually only send emails out to everyone about major stable release. But I keep fixing bugs and adding small user experience improvements on a regular basis. So if you are running into a bug, I invite you to always check for updates. And it will show you the changelog here directly in this window, so you can see if that bug has been fixed already. If it hasn't, you are more than welcome to reach out to me directly by email. You can find it on the Gumroad download page, or you can also reach out to me on the Blender Artist Forum. There is a big thread there. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the hotkeys. So it's really hard to have hotkeys that work for everyone because there are so many different Blender add-ons, there are so many different key maps. So I always invite you to change them to your liking. You can also completely disable them if you don't want to use them. In that case, I want to use them, so I'm enabling them back. And also something to remember is that if you disable the add-on or if you close Blender, those preferences will be exported to a file. That means that it will always save your preferences. If you update Blender, if you update the add-on, it will just re-import from that file. And you can just share it also with different computers. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is the library. I'm going to be using HDRIs for this project. So I want to make sure that my world HDRI folder is set. I'll start by adding a world, and I will add a world HDRI. And here I'm going to pick an HDRI from Polyhaven. They are releasing some cool stuff. I invite you to check their website and maybe support them. So I have added 2 new ones, and they are big files, so they are not getting automatic previews. So I'm going to quickly generate some previews. And now I can see them here. So I'm going to pick this empty warehouse. I'm not seeing it because I haven't enabled the scene world in the viewport shading. So I'm going to do that. And that's a good way to have a preview using Eevee. So what I want to do is to integrate my car in the environment. One thing I can add is a plane. When you add one, what you want to do is to adjust the brightness, because now it's a bit brighter, as you see, than the actual wall. So I'm gonna pick a color, and usually you want to have this color here, not in the shadows, not in the direct lights of any light that you may have placed, but just more neutral lighting from the HDRI. And now we don't see any difference between the ground and the wall. So that's great. But the problem is that when you use this, in some cases that can work pretty well because you can find a camera angle that will really fit your scene. But sometimes it's a bit constraining because you have to kind of match the same height and the same distance from the objects, so you can define the scale of your objects. So it's a bit complicated to make it fit exactly in the environment. So one other solution is using a cube. So I'm using a cube because this environment is quite cubic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to match the cube dimensions to the environment. I'm gonna first use Shift Alt and right click so I can rotate my HDRI and I can see it rotate on my object as well. I think I'm gonna use something like this. Now it's a bit more aligned. Then I can lower the ceiling. So you have to use the mesh edit. You have to move the faces. You cannot actually scale the objects. For this thing to match, I want to move the faces. Now I'm moving and matching the wall and the ceilings. And but I can also, as you can see, like those pillars are getting completely stretched, right? So you can also add some more details, like if I add a mesh cube, so inside the mesh, not as a separate object, but inside the mesh, I can add a cube and I can just place it over the pillars like this, and I can scale it up. So something like this, but you can be a bit more accurate, of course, like you can do a lot more to match the environment. And this is what I did actually. So I'm gonna cut the video here and replace the mesh with the one I've done already. And this is what I came up with. So I modeled some of the beams, the pillars, and I moved all the walls to the right size. So you're always going to see this kind of stretching. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to hide it with the camera, or we will just Photoshop it as much as possible. We can actually do that like in the final renders. Now you have the content aware feel in Photoshop that does wonders. So it's easily fixable. But usually what you want to use is an actual backplate. You don't want to work directly in the HDRI. But when you don't have the backplates, because not all the sources give you the backplates, then that's one solution to integrate your objects in an HDRI. And the other good thing with having modeled this is that if I select my car and I can actually move it, and you can see that the lighting is moving on a car, which doesn't happen when you have an infinite projection of your HDRI. So this is really cool because you can get a bit more control over the position of your car, and the lighting really reflects the position. Something I forgot to do is to set up the brightness for the cube. We did it for the plane, but not for the cube, so let's do that. So now we have something that is a bit more accurate. And we're gonna add some lights. So I'm gonna use the light mixer, and here I'm gonna click on add a point, and it goes into this tool that allows you to place light on the surface. So I'm going to point at the headlights, and I'm going to use the mouse wheel to change the distance to the surface. So I'm going to put it right inside. I'm actually going to go in there, and I want to place it maybe, I think, somewhere here, because they modeled the actual light bulb. So I'm gonna do that. So I'm actually gonna place it here, and it's not gonna look like perfect with EV, because they don't have like super accurate ray tracing for the refractions and stuff, but it's still gonna give a good result with cycles. What I want to do as well is change this radius a bit, so I give it a bit of size. Like no light is actually a small point, they always have like a bit of radius, so I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna change the color, and instead of picking a color on this color wheel, I'm gonna use a temperature, because I know that this is an incandescent light, so I want to use something that is pretty warm, like back in the days they had those warm headlights. And I'm gonna show the glass again, fine, and then I can increase the intensity of the lights, but we're gonna tweak that with once we have the cycles render. For now I will just leave it like this. I know that it's gonna be a bit hard, especially in cycles. Like, let's do it now. Let's go to cycles. Gonna have a hard time to get like a light beam. It's lighting the interior, and it has a bit of an effect here. You can see it, but it's not much, right? So it's much easier to actually create a spotlight that will create the beam for us. So I will deselect my light, and then I can add another light. I'm gonna use the same way. I'm gonna change it, put it on the surface, but I'm gonna press I, and I will point it in the other direction from the surface. So that's like pointing outwards, exactly what I want. I'm gonna move it a bit closer here, and I'm gonna move it down. So now we have like a perfect cone, which is too perfect. We don't want that. So I'm gonna use an IES profile, and these ones are provided by Pixar, so we can thank them for that. And I'm gonna use something like this one maybe, and I'm gonna change the cone. So the actual cone is going to be generated by the IES, so I don't want to use the one from from Blender. I'm gonna make it like super wide like this. And now I can see that I have a shape in my light. I have some decay, like it's stronger in the middle, and then there's a decay on the side. So that's an interesting fall off that I like. I'm getting a bit of a shadow that is very sharp, but that's because I don't have a radius on my light. So same way as the point light, I'm going to change the radius. Gonna make it almost as big as the headlights. Hopefully we're not gonna get like intersecting artifacts. I'm just gonna move it slightly in the front. Okay, and then the same, gonna change the color to 2000 Kelvin, and I'm gonna maybe reduce the value. So you have to keep in mind that the AES profile comes with its own intensity. So if you want to use the real intensity from the AES, you have to use 1 for 1 watt. It's gonna multiply it. So that might be relevant when you have an AES that has the exact value that you want, but in that case we're just gonna do it visually, like we won't care about the physically based lighting. So I'm gonna select both of them. Using Shift I can click on these icons and then I can move it on the side, so I can put it exactly here. So now I have my lights, I have my light beams as well. I think I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start placing the camera. So I'm gonna close this and I will add a new camera here. So the good thing is that it creates my camera directly in the same spot where I was in the viewport, so it saves me some time. What I can use as well is the shortcuts for the pie menu. So now if I use Ctrl-Shift-C by default, I can actually control my camera from here. The problem is that every time you will enable something, it will close the pie menu. So that's something that is a limitation from the pie menu, which is a bit annoying. So that's why we have the sticky menu, and this is Ctrl-Shift-Alt-C by default. And now I have a menu that has all the same panels as the one on the side, but I can use it here and also click on things and it won't close. So that's why I like the sticky menu. We could actually get rid of this panel on the side. So let's do that. This, we have more space. So I'm gonna place the camera somewhere where I can see my lights and I can see not too many artifacts from the pillars and stuff. Like I think this is not too bad of a place to put the camera. I want to maybe control a bit the focal length. So there are two ways. I can either change the lens here and it will resume. But the problem is that when I do this, it's also changing my framing, right? Like I want to be able to maybe change the perspective of my car without changing too much of the framing. And that's using the dolly zoom. So that's one way to do it. And usually when you have those car renders or like photographs, what you want to do is to remove as much distortion as possible. So almost like it's an orthographic camera. So I think the dolly zoom is great because this way I can make sure I get the proper perspective distortion without having to struggle with placing my camera. Let's do something like this. And now what I want to do is I'm going to enable depth of field because we want to have something photorealistic. 2.8 is fine. And then I'm going to change the focus. So there are different focus mode for this button here. You can also access all of them here, but I will just show you in the preferences. If you go to photographer, you can change the button that is in header. So if you go to camera, focus eyedropper, you have those three. So my favorite personally is the AF track, but you can also use like the Blender default mode or the AF single. AF single is just going to be, you click, it sets a value for the distance and that's it. But the AF track is nice. So I'm gonna use the AF track. So now when I click this, I can actually point at something and I can also hold shift to parent it to that surface. So if the car moves, then my focus point will also move. But in that case, I can just like put it here on the hood. And now if I move my camera, then I know that this is always going to stay in focus. So that's great. And then I will continue going through all my settings. So now I want to control my exposure. I want to make it a bit darker and a bit moodier, especially with a white balance. I can go for something a lot colder and a lot greener, make something a bit like a Fincher movie. Now we have something more cinematographic. And I will also enable the post effects. So now I can also make sure that they are visible in the viewport. And I will just add almost all of them. So first, distortion. You can control if you want to have some pincushion or barrel distortion, but I can also use an ST map. And I'm providing an ST map that I captured myself from a lens that I have, which is an anamorphic lens. And this is interesting because it actually has like some barrel distortion in the center, but pincushion on the side. So I'm going to use this one and at full intensity, but I can see that I have some pixels here in the corners that are actually missing now. They are gray. And that's because those pixels don't exist. They're outside of the frame. So I'm just going to use a bit of an upscale. Now I can add some chromatic aberration. So you have, again, different modes. This one is the one from Blender, which is nice because it has a nice like dispersion with almost a rainbow effect. But you can also use like some more simple, like green magenta, for instance, I think is really common in lenses because of the longitudinal chromatic aberration has that kind of tint in general. So I like to use this one. And I'm going to reduce it, like you want something, but you don't want it to be too extreme. A bit of lens softness, that's to make the image a bit less sharp. CGI is often too sharp and feels really perfect, so you can always add a bit of softness, and you can control how much softness you want at the center of the frame and how much you want in the corners. Fringing, I don't think I want some, but I can show you the effect. Like you can see that now we have a bit of like purple fringing, which is something that happens when you have like harsh contrasts in the photos, especially when we take a photo with your phone. Like this has a lot of fringing effects, so we can use it. But in that case, I want to have like a nice, let's say we are using a nice lens, right? So I'm gonna add some bloom though, and I'm gonna use the new clear bloom from 4.4, which is a fast and good looking bloom. So I'm gonna just tweak it like this. Gonna add some streaks just to make it a bit less perfect, so I can increase the fade, but really like lower the intensity, so get like a bit of a shape. Let me just remove this, but you can see like a bit of a shape in the bloom. And then vignetting, of course, like we want to make it super dark in the corners just so we can focus the image in the center. And then we can use sharpen, but for now I'm just going to use a bit of film grain to make it as if it was shot with film. And yeah, we have something that is actually pretty nice already. So now what I want to do is to add a new camera. So here I'm going to press add and I have a new camera. But what you can see is that I lost all my settings for the post effects and the white balance, the exposure. I lost all of it. And the reason is that I actually added a new camera. I didn't duplicate it, which is this button. I added a new one. But there is a way to create a hierarchy of settings in the cameras, and that's using the main photographer camera. So you can go in the scene here and you can actually pick a photographer main camera. So I'm gonna select this one and say, this is my main. And now I have a little icon here that informs me that this is the main camera in the scene. And so now it means that my other cameras in the scene are gonna inherit from this camera. So if I don't click here to override my settings, then it will inherit the settings from the main camera. And I will do like a close-up of a headlight. And also, let's say, just for showing this feature, I want to change the resolution and use a different ratio for this image. So I'm going to use like a, I don't know, 3:2. And I will just make it a lot closer. Of course, to add some depth of field. I won't use the optical vignetting and bokeh because I don't really have a small specks of light that would create bokeh. So this can make the renders a bit longer, not by much, but still a bit longer. So I know that won't bring so much to this image. I just won't use it here. I'm gonna use a focus. I'm gonna put it here on these headlights. And now I have like some nice details. That's perfect. And I think I'm happy with this setup. So let's go to the other camera. And I think what's missing to me is, let me just zoom out a bit. So I'm not gonna lock the camera. I'm just gonna, oh yeah, I lost my resolution. So let me just recreate the resolution I had because it was not overridden. So that's why it changed. So now I have this, but I feel like the ground is not super interesting. And I can actually make it more interesting because when you look at the world HDRI Mesh that we added, which is here, we can actually change the ground reflection and roughness. So we could make something a bit more shiny if we wanted to. But what's great is that we can actually control it here directly in the material. We have those inputs available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a noise texture. I'm going to change the scale and add detail. So these ones have been, I've found those values when I was testing before. I'm going to connect it to a color ramp. This one is going to allow me to create some contrasts. And I'm going to connect this one to the roughness. And now I can, I'm going to just focus on the ground so it's faster to render. And now you can see I'm getting some nice details there. So one problem that I see is that I'm actually creating reflections on the wall as well. So I need to kill those reflections. And to do that, I will just look for the geometry node so I can find the normal of the geometry. And then here, using a dot product, I can say that any face that is pointing up, so Z up is 1, then it will return a white mask. So if I go to this, I can see like this is my mask. Now it's actually blending over the wall, and the reason for that is probably because my normals are soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my HDRI ground, and I'm going to add a modifier and set smooth by angle like this. So now I have a sharp edge, and that creates the correct normal for the dot product. So now I'm gonna also multiply it, just that gives me like a bit of control on the intensity of the reflection, and I can connect to the reflection. I want it to be a bit less reflective. So that's it. I have something that I'm happy with, and I can just render those cameras. So what I can do is here in the render queue, I can render all enabled. So these cameras are enabled with this button. And when I do that, it's going to render the images one after each other. And that's it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.